We would now like to begin with the panel discussion on this year's MERAKI theme 1:1 and the presentation delivered by our speakers. Today at MERAKI 2017, in order to conduct the panel discussion, we have with us architect Shalu Seth. Working in the field of architecture since 1997, she has successfully completed various projects ranging from commercial, residential, and mixed-use projects in the education and healthcare sectors. She has also completed interiors for corporate and individual clients. Through her hands-on experience and having managed a wide range of projects from the initial design to completion, she has a clear knowledge of structural design, material resolution, and building economics. As an academician, she is a core faculty at Dr. Baliram College of Architecture from 2016. We would now request architect Shalu Seth to please begin with the panel discussion.
Frank Lloyd Wright once said, "A doctor can bury his mistakes, but an architect can only advise his client to plant vines." Good evening, I'm Shalu Seth, your host for this panel discussion. And moving on with the panel discussion, this year's theme, as we all know, for MERAKI is 1:1, and it is all about the process of execution to get the built form. A design executed in different ways can produce different identities. Diverse product can be achieved by implementing diverse techniques of construction. All our eminent speakers here have already explained their views and their style of execution. But as it happens, every discussion raises some further questions. So I'm sure through this panel, we'll be able to answer many such questions that must have come to your mind throughout the day. Now, you have already been introduced to all of them, but some of you may have joined us late, so I will quickly introduce them once again. Right next to me is Khushru Irani from Local Architecture, Pune. Next to him is architect Kirti Da. She is a noted conservation architect. Then next to her are our guests from Dubai, ex-architects, architect Farid Ismail and architect Ahmed Al Ali. Then sitting next to them are Tropical Space from Vietnam, architect Nguyen Hai Long, and next to him is architect Chen Thi Nguyen Gon. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. And their interpreter, Le Thuy Han Nguyen. And sitting next to her is our guest from Kolkata, architect Abin Chaudhary of Abin Design Studio. And sitting closest to you and facing me is architect Sameep Padora from Sameep Padora and Associates. Please welcome all of them with a round of applause. Now, whenever we are designing facilities, there exists a close relationship between design and construction. Now, these processes can be viewed as an integrated system. And broadly speaking, design is a process of creating description of a new facility, and construction is the implementation of that design, which is envisioned by architects and engineers. But today, the architects carry a great responsibility towards humanity, both while designing as well as during transition of design to physical reality. It is this responsibility that would be our agenda of discussion today through this panel. So I would like to begin by asking something from the architects from Dubai. The architects today, they seek to minimize the negative environmental impact, which we also saw through your presentation, by efficiency and moderation in the use of materials, then energy and development space, and then ecosystem at large. So what are your views about adapting sustainable practices in various projects, whether they are commercial or residential? I would like architect Ahmed to talk to us today.
Yes. Well, as Farid showed and also explained in his presentation, we are having the capacity and the know-how and the technology to build really great wonders, but also we can make big destructions. And the speed that we are nowadays are able to make any developments or new planning or cities and so forth is never seen in history before. The knowledge, the coordinations, and because of different technologies that is available for us. So definitely, without, and first of all, a kind of ethical consensus, like an agreement in society of what is valuable for this society from its history to carry it in the future is very important. And one of the aspects, of course, is the environmental aspects, which us from different parts of the world, we share. We share one planet. We are living on Earth. And that element, which is the environment, we need to somehow agree on a way to preserve and to find a way to put measures not to contribute to global warming, and also try to make new alternatives or directions for the knowledge that we have as an architects for a brighter future. It's not a matter of opinion. I think it's a matter of necessity, and it's a matter of a must-do. And if we fail, us as a kind of a global community, to really address this issue with the knowledge that we already have, I think the price will be, we cannot really bear the price, all of us.
Correct, that's true. I would like to ask Architect Abin, what are his views? Do you agree that the price is too large for the humanity to pay?
I think sound is audible. Hello. 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 Yeah. So technology has to pay more than sustainability.
Yeah.
Eventually. So the question of what you're asking for is no, sustainable development is become very, everybody's talking about sustainable, because I feel the sustainable has two parts. One is hardware parts, one is software parts. But beyond the hardware and software, it has you need an honesty of understanding what sustainable is. Now, staying in an art, if you don't respect simple science, simple nature, understanding, then you have to pay. And being an architect, it's our responsibility to respect the resource. And the respecting resource is the first attempt for sustainability. And that is most importantly, not only in terms of material, in terms of humanity, in terms of social life, that is also part of, for me, as sustainability. Because today people talk about sustainability in terms of grading, which is essentially a completely wrong thing. Like GRIHA, green building certificates, it's just a matter of elements and documentations. But if you're really not understanding or believing what sustainable is, then you are losing the ground. And we must understand, and being in students, all the students must understand it's not in materiality or hardware or technology what kind of use. It's important that the honesty and self-respect and the respecting nature where you are actually belonging. That's important.
That's true. And so that would be, what could be your message to the students who are here? Because this is a most of the audience here is students. So what are the key factors that you think they should be looking at when they are designing their buildings? What can you enumerate them? 1, 2, 3?
No, I think it's important for them to understand, learn technology and apply, and that is the kind of understanding and honesty they have to feel and understand what is sustainable. Because it's not their mistake. Sometimes we have found in many juries and in college that because our system in educations is talk about only on gradations like matrix, that this building is green certified, 4-star, 3-star. That has become a very nuisance in our industry. Unless otherwise you being honest on what you are choosing and what you are believing and what you actually get naturally. If you can't utilize that, it's not sustainable. First, you have to believe. Second, with the mechanics of ideas, mechanics of understanding of nature, you have to approach. That is the way to understand, I think, in the first step of understanding architecture, and that could be the most responsible way to start.
Correct. Okay, I'll move on to my next question. This is for architect Samir. I'll just read out something to you. A 2016 Amnesty International report on renovation of Khalifa International Stadium in Doha, Qatar, a FIFA 2022 World Cup site, identified more than 100 workers living in squalid labor camps who were in many instances subjected to forced labor. Now, many a times, this is just one example I'm taking, but many a times we come across series of human rights abuses that increasingly occur at large-scale construction projects all across the world. There have been cases in Nepal, there have been cases everywhere around the world. So my question is that if low-cost labor enables architects, uninhibited creative expression, but what is the human cost? And normally as architects, we say that the workers are, they're hired by the contractors or the subcontractors. So, but as an architect, what are the ethics that we should be following in terms of the workers who, who bring that physical reality for us?
Well, I think firstly, just to be clear, I think architects are also low-cost labor. We're at I don't want to speak. But that being said, I think the onus really here, in some sense, lies with us. Not because of the fact that we're directly hiring the people or we are working with contractors who hire these people, or more so because of the role that we have attributed for ourselves in society. We have, and some of this, of course, when I say we, I don't mean the people on this panel, I don't mean the people in this audience, I really mean the nature of the profession as it has kind of developed over the past few decades. I do an entire lecture on this, but if you look at the role of the architect, and I'm talking only about the Indian context, if you look at the role of the architect when we achieved independence, it was this kind of nation builder, right? So architects were looked at as, as the kind of future builders of our country, and there was an optimism that we were building with. So we were kind of building new cities, so on and so forth. And as time went on and you came to the 80s, you saw that the kind of socialist economy in some sense started dictating, the kind of nature of building that took place in our country. So there was limited means of building, but the government was commissioning a huge number of projects where design still played a substantial role. And then you suddenly see in the 90s when there is this entire kind of rush of capital in the country and the economy opens up, there is a rapid change of society at large. There is suddenly a lot more access to materials, there is suddenly a lot more money that needs to be consumed by the construction industry to provide for services. And at this point, architects are not equipped to deal with this kind of rate of change. Forget about architects, lots of professions aren't equipped to deal with this rate of change. So our role moved from this idea of nation building to design to then finally looking to being service providers. While this was profitable, what it eventually meant is that we got marginalized within the mechanics of society, and we were essentially people who were fulfilling a certain need that capital had, and it has nothing to do with the actual, let's say, the actual requirement of what a city should be or what a project should be. So we were slowly becoming marginalized. At this point also, if you see globally, the NGOs became very strong. So now they were the ones who were now starting to argue for, human capital, were starting to argue for, social conditioning and things like that. And it's been about 25 years since our economies opened. All of these various anthropological and social agencies have done a lot of work as far as all of this is concerned to bring these kind of injustices that you spoke about within the public realm. And I think now we are at a situation that we are, as architects and other professionals, are very well informed about the mechanics of capital, how it empowers certain people, how there are certain people who are disenfranchised from this entire, the benefits of what we see as capitalism. And it is now that we can use all of this information to start developing practices that are in some sense challenging that older model of building and construction and design. And I think in some ways what you saw with Abin doing and what Khushru is doing with his loft and the other beautiful work that we saw earlier, all of these practices in some sense are questioning that attitude towards the fact that labor is something that is a kind of intangible mass that is supposed to deliver or work on the construction of a project. And as you can see in all of these various attitudes towards practice, they have now become an integral mechanism to drive a project, not just as means of implementation, but also a means of imagination. And there are many times that you actually start seeing these practices imbibe the labor, not just as people who are doing a faceless or meaningless job, a kind of mundane job, but as almost craftsmen that are in fact empowering the project to become much larger than what was eventually.
But sir, sorry to interrupt, but how many architects are actually empowering the workers? You all are here on this stage probably because you are doing it. But
so there are 5 more practices than that there were in the last generation. So the point here is that even if you get 5 people doing it,
so we're getting there.
Exactly, you need a beginning. And also, to be fair, this entire change of society and its nature has been so rapid and has been so difficult to actually keep a fix on. I mean, we already know financial mechanisms aren't able to kind of keep up with the rate of change that capital creates. We saw what happened to the tiger economies. We've seen what happens when an economy collapses somewhere else in the world and the repercussions that you actually see within our country here. When the financial mechanisms that actually operate cross-border like this can't keep tab on that, we are still not as well connected into those kind of networks to be able to influence that. But now we have an understanding, these various mechanisms that I spoke about earlier have enabled that we have the sense of this system that works. And now is the right time for us. I'm speaking primarily within India. I mean, that's the range of my...
So I would like to ask the architects from the other countries, ma'am, would you like to add something to this? Lee, can you please translate the question for her?
Bây giờ những cái các bạn bắt đầu máy móc mô hóa cái gì đó rồi thì chị có thể nói về trạng địa phương mình trước.
Xin chào các bạn. Tất cả những công trình của Tropical Space hiện giờ đang là theo chuỗi những công trình bằng gạch và chúng tôi sử dụng đa phần là nguồn nhân lực địa phương.
So hello. So most of our project is made by brick, so it's need to have a lot of labor work now, and it's usually to be in very rural area, either in just local, without much like kind of professional constructor. So we basically use all local builders and workers.
Đó là lý do là vì hiện giờ ở đất nước chúng tôi đang có rất là nhiều rất nhiều là những nguồn nhân công đang cần các việc làm.
One of the reason is because currently in Vietnam, we have a lot of labor needing works, and is one of the reason to creating job for them as well.
Những công việc đó nếu như được thay thế sử dụng bằng máy móc thì sẽ rất nhanh và có khi nó sẽ đẹp hơn rất nhiều.
If all of the work that we're doing in Vietnam are replaced by mechanic technique, it could be more dedicated or more accurate.
Chúng tôi khi sử dụng nguồn nhân lực là con người thì tôi cũng phải đối phó với cả việc là con người khi là người lao động thì sẽ có cảm xúc, có lúc họ cảm thấy họ muốn làm việc, hay là có lúc họ lại cảm thấy phản đối, hoặc là họ không thích làm theo ý chúng tôi, hoặc có rất nhiều những cái sự tranh cãi bất đồng trong quá trình làm việc.
So I'm not sure is this off the topic or not, but we're gonna talk a little bit about how local worker works in Vietnam. So once it comes to human, it have emotion and feelings. So while working, is have a lot of kind of discussion and arguing between the designers and the who working at the construction sites.
Có những lúc khi gặp những cái áp lực trong quá trình giải quyết công việc tại công trường, chúng tôi chỉ ước là giá như mình có một cái máy và mình sẽ thay hết tất cả mọi người ở đây.
So sometimes we have a lot of pressure dealing with all of those things. We just wish that we have a machine that can replace all of the work.
Nhưng đó chỉ là một câu chuyện thôi. Sự thật là những cái sản phẩm, những cái dự án mà chúng tôi được làm bởi những người thợ làm bằng tay thì nó tạo ra được rất là nhiều những cảm xúc mà máy móc không thể nào thay thế được, và chúng tôi rất trân trọng điều mà họ đã làm cho chúng tôi.
However, it's just a story when we are not in the right feeling. But in the end of the story, all of those projects made by human is always bring us a lot of emotion, and we do really appreciate and respect all of those work to conduct our idea into a real life project. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. It is generally accepted that traditional or vernacular architecture is well adapted to the dominant climate of its surroundings by means of methods of trial and error. That's how vernacular architecture has been. So this question is coming towards you, Mr. Irani. Traditional and vernacular buildings are ecologically sensitive and climate responsive. So how far would you agree with this statement?
Yes, these vernacular, I'm not fond of that word, but buildings, local buildings.
Yes, let's say local architecture.
Over time, buildings that have evolved over years of use and have evolved by modifying themselves and adapting themselves over time, not just climatically, but also in terms of functionality, materiality. They just tend to because they've lasted and evolved over time, they tend to have a basis in sustainability and quality, in being able to involve local community to rebuild them and maintain them. And so there's that connection between a building and the community, which we seem to be losing now, because a lot of our buildings are being built by others. Most of our buildings are not being built by a community anymore. So that's whenever we talk of using mud plaster or mud walls, you need to be able to maintain them. You need to be able to live. It's a living building, and that becomes part of your day-to-day life. And it's not possible for everybody to live like that. So that's the difference in my mind of what is evolved over time, and the way people relate to buildings and the way we relate to buildings now.
So I think all of you will agree that we all have a similar in our countries we have similar kind of architecture, similar kind of climate, sorry. So, and traditionally our buildings have been built around courtyards, and I could see it in your plannings as well, in your plans and in your designs as well. So my question is that do you all agree that this is the kind of architecture that should be practiced, or and if it is so, then why do we have see so much of so-called contemporary glass steel structures which are dotting our skyline, and they are everywhere? So would you say that it is wrong to practice that kind of architecture in our country? I would direct this to architect Farid, if he can take this up, because he's from Dubai, and as you all know, Dubai is full of these kind of structures. So I think it's appropriate that he should answer this.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Each time, I would say it's the architecture is always, in a way, it reflects the society, the way that people think, the material limitations, these geographical locations, and so on. So over the history, you've seen that always, as you mentioned, that people have almost perfected the way of building and the way of living over time by try and error, and the limitation of the history that they had within that specific geographical location. Having said, I mean, the modernity and technology, definitely it has brought in a new dimension. It's almost the word, it flattens the word in somehow that you could collaborate globally in much easier way. And because, again, of the speed that was the development, and I would say globally, it was brought up a number of discussion. I think the idea of kind of this globalization and the international style that was, in a way, was very easily welcomed and spread around the world. It had many reasons why. Once it was a symbol of the modernity. It was easy to build. It was easy to construct. It was, in a way, it was celebrating the change of the society. And almost you're kind of would like to be part of the global movement. And you have this kind of, I would say, crisis maybe in the global level, that where you had the complete form of the vernacular, it collapsed. And now that, I mean, that I'm not suggesting that we should always continue doing that. But I think what's important that you respect the values of what has been developed. And I think now we look at our societies, we learn, we see what are the new material, what is the new limitations. Yeah. And the challenge could be how we could relearn from those values and learn from our modern societies, and to build something that is related to our time. It's related to the culture, to the way people live, and so forth. So I think we're in the process. There was kind of a decade of maybe decades, modernity and then postmodern and so forth, which they had quite an kind of this impact on the global. And I think now you see many places that people are coming back, stepping back, and rethinking these strategies and so forth.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to say something about that, because see, saying sustainability or sustainable. What was sustainable for the societies before us, not necessarily sustainable for us. I mean, if we now, with all this population in the world, we use maybe the same construction techniques that has been used for the vernacular architecture, maybe we'll do more harm to the to our environment or our planet than really reinventing and thinking. So at the same time, sensibility and ethics is very important. And this is, of course, always the questions of every generation. They have to evaluate this.
Right.
And nowadays, for example, there are brilliant materials that can be recycled. They can be reused, and it can address this continual use of materials. But having said that, we can learn from our values that was universal somehow in every society. Like being consuming at this rate that we are consuming now, this is really a kind of a danger to all of us. But this is purely ethical kind of. Our job as architects, as inventors, scientists, and so on, is to keep looking for a new ways of really making, shall we say, new constructions, techniques that can match the challenges that we are facing. And the challenges that we are facing now, of course, it's different from where I come from, and for example, this part of the world. But it's also it's a huge challenges, and that the generation before us didn't really face it. So for that, we have to bring new solutions and new ways of doing things, rather than sticking into nostalgic way of and bunkering ourselves in kind of in the past. Yeah.
Right. But what about cities like Mumbai? Ma'am, I would like to ask you, I mean, if you look at Mumbai, we don't have space. So how do we practice local architecture here? So is the only solution is to build high-rise buildings?
It's a very complex question. I would think that it's not a question of right or wrong. It is more to do with the context in which the dynamics are happening. So with that reference, I would say that in the city of Mumbai today, to look at building in the vernacular style or the traditional style has a very limited scope.
Correct.
It also is affected by the huge amount of dynamics and mostly political dynamics. So it is, in that sense, a very, very complex question. But yes, as discussed by the group here with respect to Dubai, in the same sensibility,
Yes.
I think if a value system is identified, which is in place in the case of Mumbai, and if those could be valued and those could be adopted, as in the case of illustrated by Khushru for his own office, and if that can be done, then at least those pockets which have inherent values, they could be protected. And I think this kind of a spurt of very speedy development is also induced by systems of random incentives given, particularly in the case of Mumbai. And it is very scary because it is this model which is going to be imitated by the rest of the smaller cities. For instance, Pune will start following that, and Nashik. And so what will happen is that eventually all the smaller cities, which have still not become these huge megapolises, would still at least retain their quality of life. So at the center should be the health of the people. What is the quality of life that a human being should have?
Okay.
That remains a central question.
Correct. Okay, I would like to direct this question to the audience now. How many of you think that the local architecture is the way to go? Please, you can raise your hands and tell me. Oh, they all want to build only modern structures. Okay, I can see one hand shot up. Anybody else?
See, as a student, we have been advocating the fact that we should go for local materials. and we should use them as part of a local architecture. But what if the natural resource, tomorrow if Mumbai had Malad stone before, but now the Malad stone is no more, okay? So what if all these natural resources are over? So is it better to use a tile instead of a pota stone or something? It's a very rough question I have.
Who would like to answer that? Architect Sameep, can you answer this?
Yeah, the thing is, first you also have to understand what the local means. It's what was said earlier is the local is also qualified by a time that you're actually building in. Like you rightly pointed out that if you were building with Malad stone in the 1800s or 1900s, it doesn't exist anymore. So even though it is a local material, it's not available. I think what is more important is to talk about the criticality of what you use a particular material for. So, for instance, in this project that we did called Jetwan, we actually used fly ash for a project. It comes out of a factory that makes molasses. It's also molasses are used for alcohol, ethyl alcohol, and all of that. So it's actually a product that, in some sense, is not very environment friendly. The molasses that are generated. Fly ash, however, is a product that is was a byproduct of the process and was being thrown away by the factory. So we were able to use that and then develop an entire material palette with the help of Hunarshala and stone dust from a local quarry to create a new material that would use waste material that was actually a byproduct from a process that might not have been very environment friendly. But here's the thing that things are not black and white. It's not as clear saying that this is a good material, this is a bad material. It's the value that that material creates within the project and the process. So I think more than just looking at it through those binaries of good or bad, you have to learn to kind of look at the value that that particular material creates within the context that you're using it in.
Exactly. If everyone starts decorating their houses with the stone, which is really precious, so we would end up losing the natural quarries.
No, but where do you think cement comes from? What is the material that's being used to make cement?
It's again processed.
It's a natural material only that gets used and processed to make cement. No? So I mean, so there is everything has a bearing in terms of cost on the environment now, which is why you need to learn to assign value to what you're doing. So it should not just be, like you're saying, it shouldn't be about decoration then, it should be about insulation, it should be about being performative, not just decorative.
If it's used in a public building, then it's okay, but there should be some restrictions at least.
You want restrictions? I think you'll find that most architects that you talk to will say that there shouldn't be no restrictions. I mean, so the thing is, nothing, again, like I'm saying, it shouldn't be like yes or no. There should be restrictions or there shouldn't be restrictions. It should be something that's a system open enough to adapt best for a particular environment.
Okay. I hope we have satisfied you. Now this is my last question to you all, but I would like all of you to think about it and then answer, because I need a number of answers here. This is about like all of you are running your offices, and let's face it, we might be very good, we might have very good talent, but eventually getting the structure in place is all about teamwork. Right? So, what are the attributes that you think an architect requires, or an engineer? What are the attributes you think that are required to, get the team going? Anyone can take this, because I'm going to come back to you. Keep hopping from one person to the other.
Yeah, I'll start. I think it's, to respond to you, it's not just about how to get a team together or how to get a team motivated. I think today, to be an architect, I always say this to in my office, you need a big heart. You need to be prepared for the ups and downs of practice. You need to be prepared for clients' disappearing, clients calling you out of the blue and saying, come and help me now. You need to be prepared for your work to be morphed and changed without you knowing it. Once you build something, it's kind of out there and anything can happen to it. And you need a lot of patience and perseverance. And so I think that's, if you're talking about the skills and the kind of non-tangible things that you need to be an architect, I would say those are some of them.
I would like Mr. Hiram, who's been quiet for a long time. I haven't asked him anything. Can you answer this? What, according to you, is the other attributes? Any one also you can tell me to drive your team?
Văn phòng chúng tôi, cái cách làm việc thì chúng tôi hay nhìn cái trao đổi với nhau mà có cái nhìn rất là thích cái kiểu như là của một cái bầy sói, là trong nhóm sẽ có một cái người chủ động, là người đi trước giống như một con đầu đàn, và có những cái thành viên hỗ trợ để cho cái sự vận động nó rõ ràng và hợp lý nhất.
We start with each project like we solving a problem. So usually it need to have a leader who can to be a lead in the team to get the direction, but at the same time the supporters who support to go with the final solution is also not less important. So that is how we work.
Chúng tôi nghĩ rằng là trong mỗi thời điểm sẽ có một trong nhóm sẽ có một thành viên sẽ là xuất sắc nhất, thì người đó sẽ dẫn dắt cả team, và tương lai sẽ có những người khác sẽ giỏi hơn dựa vào những cái kinh nghiệm và những cái bài học của người đi trước. Thì chúng tôi nghĩ rằng đó là cái cách mà có thể mà ngày càng phát triển cái team mình mạnh hơn, và nó sẽ có một cái giai đoạn và cái lịch sử nhất định.
So in different point of time or in different project, there will be a person who be suitable for that position to be a leader. So that is how one or like the member of the team can develop themselves. Also, they can study about from the experience that we all work together, and could be the future for the whole team to be a better team.
Okay, thank you.
Chúng tôi nghĩ rằng một cái team tốt thì phải có một thành viên mà có thể quan sát, đứng phía sau và nhìn được toàn đội đang vận hành và hoạt động.
Not important, but the one who stand behind the scene all the time to make sure that the whole team go to the right direction is also very important to make the company develop sustainably. Thank you.
What about you? Sorry, you want to say something? Okay. What about you, Mr. Abin? What do you think? Anything you think that we have missed out?
First of all, you need money and projects to survive. And then you need patience and respecting each other's.
Correct.
I think that's important to each other's.
Yes, please.
Students, right? This question is meant for you actually. All these years you have worked in partnerships, including having this conference. The term MERAKI, I think that is a key. If you have, through these last 3 sessions, 3 conferences, if you have really understood the term MERAKI, I think then the MERAKI way is the best solution. Because that is what will lead you to Isn't it? I think you agree. By the clapping, I can say that you agree, because that is the only way. There is no work, not just architecture, there is no scope of work ever in any human being's life without having this sense of working in coexistence, working in cooperation. Nothing gets done without that. So that is the best way.
So what about the two of you? You are already a team sitting here.
Yes, I mean, see, since we come from Dubai, Dubai is known as it's quite a multinational place. And the team in our office, we have maybe more than 20 nationalities, different nationalities, from different religion, from different race and color and age and so forth, and expertise. And the way we work, when they say, okay, they usually say this is a Dubai practice, this is an Emirati practice, but it's not true actually. It's really a mosaic of the world, shall we say. It's within our office. And this is what makes things exciting, because every person, if he's been treated in his level with respect and have the platform to share his ideas and creativity, you will end up really having great ideas coming. I know there is a traditional notion that architects comes and design, shall we say, with a sketch or do his, but this is not the way we work. At least we somehow more, shall we say, into this research, investigation, and then also multiple proposals and sharing of ideas, which every individual person start to really share. And sometimes whether joining ideas or sometimes ideas comes from a place where it's not expected. So teamwork it's not into production, because this is a necessity. The production of architecture, drawings and working drawings and construction drawings, supervision.
Understand what is their, what are their ideas, what they think about us. Okay, now I'm going to open the floor to the audience. You have already heard our eminent speakers. They have presented their work to you. So regarding their work, what you have seen today, if you have any questions, please you can ask them now. Because we did not have that session right after the presentation. So if any one of you wants to ask anything regarding the presentations, you can ask now. Can I see a hand going up? Yes.
Hello everyone. I'm architect Anagha Naik, assistant professor in Hiram College of Architecture. Over here, palette of different architects with different backgrounds, different countries. So we have a basic requirements for the human being. Still, we have different structures, different urbanization pattern, which we are going to see. But is there any cultural difference and political difference which influence to that differentiation? That is my question. Whether cultural or political influence is the reason for the differentiation or categorization of different architecture? That is my first question, and I would like to give you a guidance regarding educational related activities. So practical knowledge is completely different, and educational knowledge is a little bit different. So how can we link between the practical and educational knowledge? So I would like to take the guidance for you.
Who do you want to answer this question?
Anyone,
Okay, I think we need a volunteer. Okay, Mr. Rabin is going to answer you.
No, I take your second question, which you are talking about, is that educations or something will be changing in terms of city-specific or country-specific architecture. I can elaborate more, but just to tell you, Bengal earlier, before 1958, was one state, which is East Bengal, and West Bengal was not there. But if you see post-independence, when they have separated, today Bangladesh has a smaller than West Bengal, but West Bengal is part of India, and Bangladesh has producing wonderful architecture. Look at Sri Lanka, Vietnam, Thailand. It's just because not only it's some kind of an educational infrastructure, and I can think that Bangladesh has got a Louis Khan that West Bengal doesn't have. But think about an educational infrastructure. They have a selective college. They have a gurus and teachers who's been teaching them so profoundly, and they are producing architecture which is really, really required for the people. But too much of urbanization in India and too much of educational infrastructures, so many architectural colleges happening across. I was talking to Khushru that 21 colleges in Pune, 21 colleges in Mumbai.
Correct.
And if you have a cross sections, is that where is the faculty to teach all those students? And that is why too much urbanization is actually deteriorating the quality. And I think that is one of the reasons you have a really scarcity. There is a one phrase, the scarcity, one of the mother of invention. So you don't have a scarcity. You have too many projects. You don't have to criticize anything. You have something coming up, and too many architecture college students is coming up without knowledge, knowing profound knowledge, and that's become a deteriorating quality of our systems. But look at Vietnam. So I think that's an important question. So my first question can be answered by anyone, but that's my take on what your last question is.
All right. Anybody else? Okay, yes, please.
Hello. Oh, yeah. I want to ask that, to get a good idea requires time. It doesn't happen on the spot. And the way you guys were talking, it seemed like because of the clients, you guys have time constraint. So how do you manage to get a good idea?
Are you asking that if you have they have time constraint, then how do they manage a good idea?
Yeah.
Okay. So, you have a deadline approaching, and you have to come up with an idea. So how do you manage it? Mr. Farid would like to answer that?
I'm just thinking about it. Look, it's, definitely architecture, to come up with the idea, it's a process. And again, as Ahmed mentioned, it's not like you wake up in the morning and then you come up with a sketch and then tomorrow this happens. But having said, I think over time, based on the experience, you build a certain understanding of processing the design. What are the important factors to look into? What are the important kind of elements to look into? And of course, every project is different, every site is different, the clients are different, the programs are different, the requirements are different. And I think as architects, you have to look at each element in a very analytical way. So if you know the process, how to analytically look into them, and then how to bring them back in a kind of very artistic way. I think that would be kind of the process. Now, the architecture is a very demanding profession. There's always the deadline is very tight. You always don't have time. You're always under budget. So these things will always exist. Let me put it this way. And it could be, I would say, they are one of the criteria and one of your design forces that you should take into the consideration and just respond to them on that time.
Yeah. I think Mr. Irani wanted to say something.
I always say that my favorite type of client is a client in a hurry, because that's when things get done. It's usually when somebody's going to take their time, they're going to think about it. Usually doesn't happen. So it's good to be under pressure. You're forced to think about things, and as Farid said, over time you come up with a system of how you're going to address a project, or your mental system, or a physical system of working on particular projects. So.
Thank you.
Tôi có một số ý muốn chia sẻ với các bạn về câu hỏi tìm ý tưởng, bắt đầu ý tưởng, hình thành và phát triển nó như thế nào. Thì ví dụ như ở văn phòng của chúng tôi, thì khi mà chúng tôi ra một đề bài cho team làm việc, thì thỉnh thoảng tôi thấy các bạn đầu tiên là search at daily.
So we want to give some comment about the question. To start with the ideas, so we usually give that for the whole team, and some of our staff start with the Arch Daily.
Sau đó các bạn ra rất nhiều những idea khác nhau.
And then they develop many concepts and ideas.
Rồi các bạn đau khổ dằn vặt vì idea của mình sao không đẹp bằng của người ta.
And then they struggling and being very upset why our concept is not as good as others.
Tôi nói với các bạn rằng các bạn nên ngưng việc search at daily khi bắt đầu một công việc.
So she talked to all the staff like they should stop to watch on the Art Daily when they start working on the project.
Tôi muốn các bạn đi ra ngoài nhiều hơn. Chúng ta có thể cảm hứng này đến từ trong cái không gian môi trường chúng ta đang sống, từ thiên nhiên, từ việc đi chơi hoặc ngồi trò chuyện với bạn bè của mình.
So we recommend them to going out to see friends, to have a chat, to go to any place that they can find inspiration instead of the internet. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sometimes có thể hỗ trợ thêm bởi bia hoặc là gì đó.
And sometimes we can support them by beer and some of the food to working on their own concept and ideas. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I think the panel is just about heating up, but we are running short of time now, so we'll have to end it here. Thank you so much, all of you. It was lovely having you here. Thank you, audience. Thank you very much. Seated, I think they want to say something. What happened?
We offer our utmost gratitude to all the speakers, our guests of honor, and architect Charlie Singh. After such an informative panel discussion, we are sure that the idea of design execution will be much more simplified in the minds of those who are present here today. We would now request our volunteers to escort the speakers to their seats.
All right.
A very good evening to one and all present here. I would request Pankaj Bhagat of 4th year architecture to felicitate architect Chalu Seth for conducting the panel discussion. Can we have a round of applause, please? I will now call upon stage Shritisha Jathar and Abhishek Kotian of 4th year architecture to felicitate our rankers for MERAKI 2017, architect Akanksha Chaudhary and architect Manan Soni. Thank you, Akanksha and Manan. We would like to show our utmost gratitude to our President of Hire Trust, Mr. Prasad Hire Sir, and Chief Coordinator of Hire Architecture, Mr. Gitanjali Hire Ma'am, for having faith in our ideas and supporting us in our journey for MERAKI 2017. We are grateful to our Principal and Convener of MERAKI, Architect Swapna Khare Ma'am, and Vice Principal, Architect Sunil Makhdoom Sir, for their unwavering support at every stage, right from the very beginning of MERAKI. We are thankful to our advisors and guides, Architect Pranav Bhatt Sir and Architect Praresh Kapadia Sir, for their support. We are thankful to our faculty head of MERAKI 2017, Architect Sameer Naik Sir, for his immense support and coordination with each and every member involved in the culmination of MERAKI 2017. We are immensely obliged by the presence of our guests, Architect Kirtida Unwala and Architect Samit Palora, for this event. We are grateful to our speakers, Architect Abin Chaudhary Sir, Architect Krishna Rani Sir, architects from Tropical Space, Vietnam, and architects from Ex-Architects, Dubai, for sparing their valuable time, and their office staff for their support and coordination. A special vote to the core faculty of our college for their guidance during the process of organizing this event. Furthermore, we extend our immense gratitude to them for their generous contribution to marketing, publicity, and registration for the event. We are extremely grateful to our Student Welfare Officer, Mr. Pranil Panchal Sir. We are thankful to the non-teaching staff for their support and cooperation. We thank our platinum sponsors, Aditya Birla Ultratech and Falcon Exhibitions, for their financial backing and support for this event. We are also thankful to our magazine partners, A+D and Indian Architects and Builders, and the supporting associations which were integral to the culmination of this event. The event wouldn't have been possible without the core student team, namely the members of research team, design team, sponsorship team, marketing team, the escort, hospitality, security team, and volunteers from students who have worked hard to bring this event together. We are grateful to all the volunteers and faculties from other colleges who have been an immense help to us by spreading word regarding the event and making this event reach individuals beyond regional borders. Students of architecture from all over Maharashtra and neighboring states have participated in this event. The staff members of this auditorium, decorator, caterer, printing press who have coordinated with us have played a crucial role and hold our greatest appreciation. And last but not the least, you as an audience have been extremely cordial throughout the event, which has been tremendously helpful in the successful execution of the event. A round of applause for yourself. I conclude my vote of thanks with this and thank for listening. I would like to request you all to please stand up for the national anthem.